first one would be probably that of being able to study abroad, which is not something that is allowed for many people coming from my country. And I have had that chance since high school, since I did receive a scholarship which allowed me to do my higher education in a small college in the United States. So that was my big opening on the world, if you like. So that was one big happy moment. The other happy moment was, I suppose, having my first baby. That's also something. Family life is very important. And then I would count receiving my PhD as a very happy moment. It was for me, but it was also for my parents. Being the eldest of the family, when somebody receives a doctorate degree, it's good for the rest of the family. You are giving a little bit the example to the rest of the family to continue and finish their studies. So I think I can recall these three big moments. They all have to do with education, and I think education is something very important in the life of individuals and in the life of nations.
But then you went to the United States to study, and that was not usual.
That was not usual. It was very. I was part of the first group actually to go from Morocco to the United States. Usually our destination is France, having these very umbilical kind of links with our former colonizer and as a matter of fact, when I decided to accept the scholarship and come to the United States, the director of my high school was very surprised. He says, "What are you going to do in the United States? I mean, going to France is understandable, but going to the United States, that's something that was not very usual." And it's true, it was a first. We were with a lot of other, many other students at the time. We dared go further than France.
But how did you make that choice of not going to France but to the United States?
Well, we were in the 60s at the time. That was the 60s, and the 60s we were already in the middle of the Cold War, I think, and it was very clear that the superpowers of the time was not France or England, and having the opportunity to go to the United States. It could have been Moscow, for that matter. It would have been exactly the same thing. It's going to see the West, in a way, in its highest form. So, and indeed, when I was studying in the United States, I did learn Russian. That was one. I chose to take Russian as another foreign language, thinking of having the opportunity to go and see Russia also. That would have been interesting. So that it's in a way is the fascination with this other, and why France? We already knew France quite well, so why not go for the other, the more prominent powers, which were clearly at the time the United States and Russia, who were more eminent on the international scene.
But there must be something in your family or in your background that caused you to be quite critical already at that time.
I come from an old family where we have a lot of learning. I mean, we call that a learning family, a family where there is a tradition of learning, if you like. So I came from that background. But my father, within that family, was a worker, belonged to the lower strata, if you like, and he used to be a syndicalist. So we grew in that. I remember celebrating with him the 1st of May, going out with him during the 1st of May. So this very kind of mixed background. So I belong to that kind of tradition. So I grew up with a syndicalist.
Your father also went through rather difficult times in Morocco, if he was a syndicalist.
No, no, he didn't. He wasn't. He was member of a syndicate. He was in the working class, but I mean, in the early, he died quite early, so he didn't reach the time where there was some oppression of the syndicalist movement in the 70s or more the 80s. We were there. I mean, in the 60s, it was these were the first years of independence, and the nationalist movement was still quite strong, and it'll be much later in the modern contemporary history of Morocco that there will be a little bit more oppression of the syndicalist movement. But at the beginning it was really very celebratory, and on the contrary, people were encouraged to engage in this kind of mass movements in order to develop the country, with the view to developing the country, to modernizing the country, bringing in these new movements that reform, restructure the modern society, the independent modern society. So there is no history of oppression in my family. It'll come much later.
Because several friends that we talked to, then they had to go into exile, or voluntary exile during those difficult times.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There are those who went to exile. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a very good friend of mine who spent practically his I don't know, maybe 30 years of his life in exile in Senegal, for example, and who just returned lately. Others in France also went to France, and yeah, but these were the 80s and the 90s, yes, right.
So after your studies in the United States, so what did you do?
I returned to Morocco, and I think I stayed for a while before returning to finish my PhD. That was my itinerary. I thought that I had to understand a little bit what was happening in Morocco in the 70s. There were big student activities, and it was the beginning of the centralizing of the state at the hands of the monarchy. The monarchy was wanting to impose itself on the nationalist movement and the various tendencies within the nationalist movement. So it was the beginning of a big movement of resistance within civil society. And in order to understand that, I was married at the time. We thought that it would be nice to go to France, where the majority of these youth were organizing themselves and exiling themselves in order to be able to continue their struggle. It was also the attraction of May '68. What happened in France in May '68 was something that attracted the imagination of many youth, and we were very impressed by that, and we liked to see that. So we went to France first, and we went to study at this university, which was created in Paris by the May '68. Yeah, it was created within within this framework of this May '68 movement. This Paris, the 8th of Vincennes. So we we met the heroes, some of the heroes of May '68. So that was also something that was very part of this history that I am telling you about, being impregnated with these ideas of the May '68 before going to England to finish our PhDs.
And then afterwards, most of the time you stayed in Morocco?
Yes, 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 absolutely. Yeah, the returning home was something that was necessary, vital. Yeah.
And then you were committed to various social issues and concerns.
Yes. Well, once you have the bug, once you have the bug, you just have to continue. Yeah, exactly. It started with the student union, which was a very militant student union, and it continues in the university with the within the union of the teachers. Yeah, and of course it also manifested itself in the academic work that you do, even as, you know, either in the classroom or in publications, etc. Yeah.
So could you tell us what you specialize in?
I am a historian. Yeah, I little bit interested in history of ideas in particular. That's what I worked on. History of ideas in our regions means also a little bit history of religious ideas, because religion is part of the makeup of the intellectual thinking, in intellectual thought. So it started with Morocco and North Africa, and the interest extended to relations between Morocco and West Africa, or the region we call the Western Islamic world, which englobes in a way also Spain under Islamic rule. So it's that kind of that area. Geographically, it's the Islamic West, and the movement of ideas in that region.
Yes. But did you ever manage to go to Russia?
Last year. Yeah, last year, finally, as tourists. I finally took out my book where I was learning the language and tried to remember some of the words, because there you have to speak some at least be polite with people and say hi. So yes, we did go to Moscow and to St. Petersburg, and we were really very impressed by what we saw. Yeah, both the Moscow underground is just something that you don't want to get out of, and of course the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. But it's a huge country. It's like China. I mean, you've seen. I don't think we have been to Russia. We have been to Moscow and St. Petersburg, and we haven't even seen the two cities as it should. So, but it was something that was on our mind since a long time. Yeah.
And for Africa, Frantz Fanon is a very important thinker. Yeah. So what do you think of him? Well,
I haven't read all of his works, but of course the Wretched of the Earth is the one that everybody has read, and in my generation at least it was something that it's a must read in a way, well, it represents in a way this progressive thinkers, which can come from the East or the West or whatever, but who have this humanistic outlook on issues, who go really right to the heart of the interrogations, and not only touch on the surface of the question, but ask the essential questions. And I think that's what make everybody forget where Frantz Fanon comes from, but only look at what he says, which is really what any conscious thinker would think about. So I think it's the essence of a human thought, and for that he's a very great thinker for all times and all places. Yeah.
And who are some of the writers that you like most? There will be many, I know.
There would be a lot of them. Too many to cite and or to choose from, in a way. And I think you've chose one of my favorites. Would be Frantz Fanon. Of course, there are also some Moroccan thinkers that we would like to also look at, and not only read but also criticize, because some of these thinkers are very provocative. They ask questions. They don't necessarily answer the questions, but they ask the right questions, and it's nice to also read those who don't have already made answers, but just have good questions. Yeah. So there are plenty of them, fortunately for all of us. Yeah.
Because I think in this world which is so English dominated, so there's sometimes very little that we know about Morocco, about other countries. But that's also the idea of the Global University, that we try to see and also get in contact with different thinkers, looking from their perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So could you quote one or two Moroccan thinkers that you think have raised provocative questions?
I can think of, you talked about Hamouda, but I know Hamoudi, Abdallah Hamoudi, who is an anthropologist and who also worked on religious institutions, religious ideology in our societies, and who has studied religious institutions both in Morocco and other places in the very Muslim countries, if you like, or in the Muslim culture in general, and who has also asked some very interesting questions about how religious ideology can shape our way of looking at the world. His latest work is on pilgrimage, which he went to pilgrimage and he lived the experience with the people from his village from the beginning to the end, and he wrote about this pilgrimage question. So he's very close to my interests, because he deals with religious ideas and ideology, and I think his work is very interesting and also asks very important questions, which concerns us today, as we see the religious ideology being becoming quite prominent in the debate. Yeah. We have also a historian, Abdullah Al-Arawi. He has reflected on the history of North Africa, essentially. He has a French education. He has a very modern outlook on Moroccan history, which is interesting, but you not necessarily agree with the way he sees the unfolding of Moroccan history, but he asks some also very interesting questions, and Abdullah Al-Arawi is somebody that is from time to time will come out with some questions, big questions to be asked about North African and Moroccan history in particular. He works within what he calls the Maghreb, which a concept in itself which is very questionable, but still he asks important questions. Who else? There is a philosopher, and the two they have Abdullah Hammoudi and Arwi are still around. So they are still contributing, they're still writing, they're still very productive. And another person that I really admire and whose works I like is Taha Abdul Rahman, a philosopher. He has only had an Arabic education, so it's completely Arabic background. I mean, he didn't study outside of the Arab-speaking world. But he also is a very prolific writer on Islamic philosophy, if you like, the old Islamic philosophy, and how this Islamic philosophy is being developed nowadays in contact with the Western philosophies during the modern period. So these are three. Abdullah Hammoudi is Anglophone, Abdullah Al-Arwi is Francophone, and Taha Abdul Rahman is Arabophone. Yes.
But for you, what are the most urgent issues we have to deal with today, and what could be the alternatives?
I think the problem that we have not dealt with very well in my country, at least I can speak for my country, is education. And with education, we have this issue of the language of education is very important. And I think we really haven't done much thought about how to educate people for the country of tomorrow, the society of tomorrow. And of course, before that you have to decide what society would you like for tomorrow. And I think the thought has not been done sufficiently well, or has not been done at all. So I think the issue of education still remains something really vital for the success of any endeavor that seeks to adapt our society to the changing world. Yeah, I really think that this is still an issue that has to be tackled very seriously.